Good afternoon and welcome to the Virginia Bar Association's Practice Management Advisor webinar. I'm Paul Fletcher. I'm the Executive Director of the VBA, and it's my pleasure to bring you this program. This is the last of the quarterly webinars that we provide to you free of charge. We're happy to provide it to you free of charge. We will not be able to provide CLE credit for it, however. During the past year, the VBA has staked a claim as the leader in education for lawyers on artificial intelligence. We've done a number of different programs during the course of the year, and our solo and small firms committee put together a model policy that's available at the VBA website, vba.org, that you can download and adapt for your own purposes. It's my pleasure once again to say hello to our friend Jeff Schoenberger of Lawyerist. He is here to talk about the brave new world of Microsoft and to be all in on AI. I hope you got that. The AI on AI is what they went with. So Jeff is going to talk about Copilot, Microsoft's widely available artificial intelligence program. So Jeff, welcome and take it away.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We'll spend a few moments in PowerPoint, and then much of what I'm going to do, we will do live and in person. So hopefully the demo gods are with us today. As Paul mentioned, we're going to focus today on Copilot. Before I dive into the meat of it, I always like to mention there are great resources, including that model AI policy, available on the VBA's website. And if you have questions about AI, other legal tech, questions on law office management, feel free to schedule some time. VBA covers that as well, so we can have a chat, talk about whatever you like. Plenty of great folks who are happy to help you out. So let's talk a little bit, first of all, about what AI is and what it isn't, just to give you a little bit of a basis before we dive in. So generative AI is what's really new. We've had different AI concepts in the past. So if you've got a Netflix queue and it suggests other shows, it's taking things that it's observed you doing, and it looks in a database and says these things are similar. So if you watch a lot of cop shows, it'll show you other Law and Orders, or it'll show you Bones or something like that. Or if you're like me, you watch lots of cartoons, it'll show you other cartoons. Or if you like foreign shows, it'll show you more of those. Similarly, we've had this kind of concept with, if you're using navigation with GPS, it's taking information it has and it's redirecting you. But we haven't in the past really seen AI creating new content. And so that's really what's kind of exciting. And we'll do a little bit of that today, but you've probably seen it on the news, or maybe you've gone to chatgpt.com and experimented. I would feel totally comfortable experimenting with any of these free ones, as long as you're not using client data in the free ones. We'll talk, you want to be a little bit more specific when we're talking about client data generally, but if you wanted to see, have it, throw up a picture for your Christmas party, or if you wanted to have it generate some ideas to write about for your website or for social media, absolutely great. Go ahead, play with that, experiment with it. I think it's phenomenal. So that's really what's kind of new. It's not that, the computer is making decisions. We've really, we've got computers making decisions for a long time. So the big idea really with this is that we've got, if we look back at prior computer experimentations with, learning and, reasoning, they were generally slow, fairly simple. But today we've got, super fast computers. I mean, think about, how much more capable your phone is even than your computer would have been 10 years ago, much less anything, 15, 20 years out. We've got, all of these data centers. I assume you've probably, especially those of you, if you're living in Northern Virginia, what data centers are like. There are a ton of them up there. And you might have seen articles that now Amazon, Microsoft, of course, Google, they're all thinking about nuclear power because, these AI processing facilities take up tons and tons of energy, and they take up tons and tons of data. And where are we able to get lots of data to train these AI models? Well, you might have seen a few months ago that the New York Times sued OpenAI. I think they sued Microsoft too, Microsoft is fairly intertwined with OpenAI, which is the sort of the creator of ChatGPT, sued them over the idea that there's copyrighted material, and that copyrighted material is out there on the internet, and rather than pay for it, OpenAI just used it to train their various models. So that sort of data would not have been easily accessible. I mean, think if you went back 20 years, what would have been on the internet? Go back 30 years, where would you have gotten the data to train that model? At best, you would have made a deal with the Encyclopedia Britannica or something like that, and then hopefully found a way efficiently to get that into a computer format. So, as I said, lots of situations where you're already using AI, but what you're not using is something that is creating new content. Honestly, I've even started using Copilot and more so ChatGPT as kind of a search engine. I'll always go verify what its answer is, but of course, we've got that ability to just throw a question in. Some things, like honestly, like Microsoft's pricing, I find it more convenient to ask ChatGPT than to try to figure out what it might cost if I wanted to do certain things within the Microsoft 365 sphere. So hopefully you're kind of familiar with what ChatGPT is doing, but today we're going to focus on Microsoft Copilot. And a couple of things about Microsoft Copilot. I'll go into the details of how it works, and then we'll dive in and do everything else live. But first of all, there is a free version, and I would put the same caveat on its free version that I would put on the free version of ChatGPT or Google's Gemini or any of the other AIs out there. And that is that if it's free, it's probably, unless you've got something explicit in writing in their terms of service, it's probably not something I would put client data in. It's great to experiment, great to use for marketing, for maybe if you need like policy development. So if you're maybe starting a new firm or looking at changing one of your kind of HR policies, or if you want to get an idea of, say, we need something that goes step by step on how to redact a document in Adobe Acrobat. Okay, throw that question into Copilot, throw that question into ChatGPT, it'll spit out something. That's probably pretty good, and it's certainly a very valid use of the tool. Make sure their steps are correct, so I would have someone walk through it, but no client data at worst, cost you nothing to try, go for it. So there are free versions out there. If you want to do most of what I'm going to show you today, you're going to pay Microsoft. And assuming you're on a Microsoft 365 business plan, so you're not a true solo and you have a Microsoft 365 personal subscription, or you're not using the family subscription as for the business purposes, if you have a business subscription, you're looking at $30 per person per month to get Copilot. Having said that, a couple of things about that. One is you're probably a little surprised at the price, given that if you're on a normal Microsoft 365 business plan, you're talking roughly somewhere in the $8 to $30 a month for everything that you associate with that, including Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, all that sort of stuff. So another $30 seems kind of steep. But the good thing about their pricing here is that you don't have to buy it for everyone. A lot of situations where I'll talk about something that's really cool in a product, like I don't know, say Clio, for example, if you're a Clio firm, lots of great things about Clio. They make you have the same plan for everyone at the firm. So if two people really want to have some feature that's only available in the top tier plan, you got to buy the top tier plan for everyone. There are many subscriptions like that. I don't want to pick on Clio for that. Microsoft for this says if you've got 1,000 people on your Office or your Microsoft 365 subscription, and you only want one person, like the IT guy, managing partner, IT guy, and the managing partner, whatever it is, who want to experiment with it, sign those two people up. It's going to be an increase overall of $60 a month if you sign up two people for Copilot, but you don't have to do 30 times 1,000 in order to do what I'm showing here. So you can do some judicious deployments or judicious experiments with how you use Copilot and see if it's worth it, see if it works for you. Broad examples, we're going to do these together, but I just want to have them in the materials in case you ever kind of wonder what you might be able to experiment with Copilot. But like I said, we'll be doing these live. I want to give you an idea before we dive in how Copilot works and how I think it's a little bit advantageous over ChatGPT or Gemini or some of the other AIs out there. And that is Microsoft has this huge advantage, particularly in business environment, in that most people use their desktop products. Most of us use, at least as attorneys, Outlook and Word. Some of us might use Teams, a few of us might use Excel, and I expect an even smaller number might use PowerPoint. So Microsoft can build Copilot directly into the apps that you already know and use and are paying for. So that's where most of our questions are going to start, and most of what we're going to show you today is going to live, and that's going to be inside of the Microsoft app. So you're not jumping out to a web browser, you're not downloading a separate app for the most part. You're just living in stuff that you're already kind of familiar with. So you're going to put some, question in about a document or make a request of Copilot. It's going to go from that app that you made that request in. So you see that prompt. It's going to go through the Copilot system, and then it's going to hit what they call the Microsoft Graph down there at the bottom left. The Microsoft Graph is just really a fancy name for your stuff. So as you see there, your emails, your files, your meetings, your contacts, your calendars, your chats, that sort of stuff. This is, again, another advantage that Microsoft, and to a lesser extent, Google might have over other AI products from Meta or somebody like that. In that, if you're, the more you're fully in one of these ecosystems, the better the AI can help you do stuff. So if you're sort of enticed by the idea that you want it to help you draft a letter, and of course you want that letter to sound like it comes in your voice, sound like it comes from your firm, et cetera, the more the AI has access to essentially samples of how it should look, how it should sound, what words you use, that sort of stuff, the better the AI will do. So there's an advantage of sort of aggregating your data with Microsoft or with Google or something like that, so that its bucket, its repository of what it can look at and what it can use as samples, not just to give you back a cover letter, but to give you back a cover letter that sounds like it came from your firm, the better off your result will be. So it's going to hit that Microsoft Graph. Again, just think of that as a fancy term for the stuff that you have stored in the Microsoft 365 environment. It's then going to take that. So we've made our request. It's sort of been seasoned or flavored with your Microsoft Graph. Then it goes out to the large language model. Easiest way to explain that, it's not literally true, but think of that large language model as, it dumps something into ChatGPT. It's not what it does, but for purposes of explanation, just kind of think of that. So, it's sort of flavored that question that you asked with your meaning and it's an understanding of your, context, throws that to that large language model. It's going to get a response back. That response is then again going to be grounded based on what Copilot knows about your firm. Then it sends it back to the app, and then you get a response. It goes a lot faster than I just described, but it gives you an idea of how, one, you're working in native apps, two, it's flavored with what stuff you've provided to Copilot, and then three, the thing that you hear about most with AI, that I type a prompt and it gives me a response, is a part of that, but it's a little bit more precise in what it can return. First question I get when I talk about this, after describing this whole sort of situation, is, what's the security like? Like, I've got my data in there, I'm sending something to a large language model. What does that mean? If you're using Microsoft 365, paying for it with Copilot, so you get Copilot in your instance, in your 365 environment as part of your subscription, your data and your questions do not get stored, they don't get saved, they don't get trained on. So I would feel comfortable using Copilot for legal work, as long as you're using the paid version, it's in the context of your Microsoft environment, because essentially, as I understand it, what they're doing is they're taking essentially an instance of Copilot, an instance of this large language model, and they're kind of confining it to your 365. So I think that's, if assuming you want to experiment and you're willing to put down $30 a month and you want to try it for work-based stuff, that's probably among the safest ways to go. So as I said, this launched originally a little over a year ago. Originally, it was targeted at large corporate customers. Now, of course, if you have 2 licenses and you want to buy a Copilot for one of your 365 licenses, that is absolutely an option, and it's worth trying. So now we get to go to the kind of the fun stuff where we get to do some of this live. So I thought I'll drop out of here, drop out of PowerPoint, and I'll pop over. I'm going to do it in Windows, but honestly, this is one of the few times that I can tell we Mac users are not at all second-class citizens when it comes to the features built into the apps. So if you want to follow along, if you have Copilot already, you could go ahead, pop open Microsoft Word on the Mac, and you'd see essentially the same thing. So let me go ahead and let's say we want to open a document, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up an e-discovery document. So a couple of folks put together an e-discovery document, and they use this for some, for speaking at a CLE. And if I wanted Copilot, it's only 27 pages, but maybe I want to see what Copilot can summarize out of it. Once you've paid Microsoft for the license, you're going to have this Copilot button right here on your home ribbon in Microsoft Word. Hit that button, and it'll pop out, and it'll, takes a little bit of time. Everything that you see in the YouTube videos and stuff where they demo this, it's going to be faster. But in the real life, this is kind of the speed that you're seeing. And so let's say here, let's ask it, please, let's see if we can summarize this document. Let's see what it does with it. Occasionally, I'll get completely different answers, so it'll be interesting to see. It's always fun to do. So it found, what are we looking at here? We're looking at about, I'm going to say 6 or 8 references, 3, 6, 8, 10 references. So it found 10 points out of the 27-page document that it highlighted. And so the first one here was the digital evolution in law. And so it says, the legal profession has transitioned to a digital world, et cetera, et cetera. And maybe I'm curious as to why Copilot gave me that as a bullet point. Well, Copilot, being a good practitioner of noting sources, gives us what are effectively footnotes. They're really links. I can hover over it, and if I click on it, it'll take me to where Copilot got this point. And so it took me, you see it briefly highlighted this paragraph, "Our world is digital," in blue. And then if I highlight over the second one here, it's going to take me to that second paragraph. So that's where Copilot derived the idea that we have a digital evolution in law. Looks like it found some references to changes in the federal rules of civil procedure. So that's kind of exciting. If I wanted to see where it got those, I could click on the 3 there. And it says there, obviously, there were changes in 2006. And then if I click on the 4, or if I just hover over it, it gives me a little bit of a preview. If I click on it, it takes me to the paragraph where it found those changes. One thing I like to try when I bring up this document is that if I ask Copilot, are there any court cases mentioned? Just go ahead and ask it. We'll see what it does. It's going to think for a while. And it's processing. It gave me a response. And it says the document mentions several court cases related to e-discovery and the preservation. It does Cromwell. I'll click on that. And there's a mention of Cromwell, Bernie v. Cromwell. If you're into evidence, maybe that means something to you. We got a second one here on, what is this, Echo Star. And then we've got a third one on Warburg. And we can click and we can go to that, or we can click and we go to the second one. Couple of interesting things, though. First of all, when I've done this demo in the past, as recently as, I don't know, like 3 weeks ago, it would tell me there were no court cases in the document. And then my juxtaposition would be, as you might expect, I'd go over here to where the navigation pane is, I'd type V period, and it would come up with a bunch of V periods, which is a shorthand to see where the court cases are, right? So now they've improved it, and it mentions several. Well, it mentions 3. It does not mention them all, though. So, for example, we don't have anything, I don't believe, let me double check, we got 3 cases. We don't have anything here on Thompson versus General Nutrition Corp. So maybe if I ask it, list all the court cases, oops, helps if I could spell, in the document. We'll see what it does with that. See if it comes up with anything more interesting. So again, gave me burn. Let's see what it found. So it did find Thompson, and it found another one. It found Mayflower textile that it did not originally give us. So maybe it's been making a judgment call that it doesn't think that Warburg is important enough, but I didn't ask in my first question for whether it was important. I just said, are there any court cases? And so it only gave me 3. So it's not foolproof, as you can see there. It's got a little bit of a slack. So it gives you, I think this summary, having, knowing the document, I think this summary is pretty good, but I wouldn't trust it certainly 100%, and I would still double check my work. The best way I've heard Copilot, and for that matter, honestly, ChatGPT as well, described is that it returns like good work for like an intern. So, a summer associate or whatever, it's going to do pretty well. And then you're kind of off on that from, you got to double check the work kind of, but it gets you started. So that's a good example of, doing a summary, asking it a few questions. There's a question in the chat about connecting NetDocs to Copilot. I'm going to have to get back on you. So my email's in the materials. We've got a bunch of really great NetDocs folks at the company. I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. My guess is right, because I'm a little conflicted on that, because one, I know that NetDocuments is using Microsoft Copilot because, or at least using the backend, they're using the Azure storage and stuff like that for NetDocs. So they would have access to it, and they do have their own, I didn't mention that so far, but they have their own LLM AI type thing. And it's, well, they've got ND Max, and then they've got Pattern Builder Max, which is more about document drafting and document creation, that are taking advantage of the Microsoft services. But whether you can go in and directly say, like, have NetDocs be the basis as part of that graph, I don't know. The VBA just put my email in the chat. So yeah, feel free to grab that and shoot me an email, and I will check and let you know. So let's take a look at another thing in Word here. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to open a new document. And you might, if you were eagle-eyed, you might have noticed that when I first opened Word, before I opened the eDiscovery, that I've got this giant prompt on the screen that I could just start drafting with AI. So again, if you had something, you really wanted to start from scratch, you could literally type to say, draft a cover letter for a client regarding their estate plan set for their review. And we go ahead and hit generate. And it's going to go through. And again, it's not going to be formatted, but I'll show you how you can get a little bit better in just a minute by giving it a sort of starter document as its source. So it went ahead and, just from what it has access to in our system, it says, I hope it finds you well. Pleased to inform that we've got a comprehensive estate plan for your review. It listed out all the documents it would generally find in a comprehensive plan. Obviously, if you've done something different, you'd want to edit those. And then please take time to review, et cetera, et cetera. And you've got these options down here that you could just have it regenerate it. Like for some reason, this is a non-starter for you. So you could hit regenerate, and it would go through and it would write it again. A lot of the same stuff up at the top as far as addressing. And you'll see it, with this time, it gave you a little bit more, gave the client, the recipient of this letter, a little bit more detail about what each of the documents in an estate plan would be. And for, maybe you kind of like this one, but you said, make the letter shorter. And we'll go ahead and we'll hit return there. And that seems pretty darn short. Here's its cover letter. Here are the 4 things in it. And, go ahead and review it. And we look forward to hearing from you. So pretty nice, pretty straightforward. And you say keep it, and then the blue highlighting goes away, and you just have a normal Word document that you can do kind of whatever you want with. And so that's pretty handy. again, if you had something that was a little more formal, you could use a starter document for that. So let's go ahead, let's close out of this, and let's, instead of telling it to draft something from scratch, let's give it a little help along the way. So for example, let's say we've got, we want to draft in a, maybe an engagement agreement. And we've got, as a firm, we have three options. Sometimes we do hourly work, sometimes we do contingent work, sometimes we do flat fee work. And maybe you went to the trouble of combining those into a single sort of template document. Maybe you've seen some of our prior webinars where I've said, you should get all your language in one place. That's 99, or well, maybe not 99, but probably 95% of the benefit of templates and of sort of even of document automation. It's just you got that language in one place, so it works out pretty well. But we don't need the whole template. We just want Copilot to do some of this work for us. I'm going to click on the little button and pop that out. And let's say I want to draft an engagement agreement. Between our firm and let's say it's John Doe. And we represent John in an auto accident case. We do this on contingency. And then let's say we're going to have a special payout structure. For whatever reason, John's going to get a special payment structure. And so we would want to put in the details rather than you guys having to watch me type all the details. I'm going to go ahead and paste them in. So the firm's going to get 33% of an award if it's less than $1 million, 25% for amounts over $1 million, and if we go to trial, we just get 40% of whatever is recovered. So we've got this set up, still kind of what we did before, right at this point, it would just use whatever it could find and kind of create an agreement. But let's give it a model to focus on. Let's say use, and then if you hit the slash key, you get a prompt here. And we want to use, see if we can find this. Give it a second. We want to use engagement agreement as the model for our document. So we're telling it what we want to change from, we've pointed it at our model document. So, we're telling you who the client is. It's going to be John Doe. Telling you what the situation is. We're doing an auto accident case. We're telling you what our fee structure is going to be. It's contingent, and then we even have special provisions on top of it being contingent. Take a look at our engagement agreement.docx. Use that as the model. And let's go ahead and hit generate. And again, we're doing this in real time. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. This is pretty darn fast for the experience. And I want to point out a couple of things. So we've gone ahead and generated the document. And it takes advantage of word features. So we've, if you had programmed your model document, some of our past webinars on using styles, so you get the advantage of styles. You've got your headings down the side there. But let's go up and see it customized our service area. So we are doing contingent fee, and it's got in there that we're doing 30% if the award's less than $1 million, 25% for over $1 million, and 40% if the case goes to trial. Scroll up a little bit further. We see John Doe as the client. I didn't tell him who the firm is. If we were doing this, for real, we'd probably put in, or be smart enough to pick up our firm. And then we've got the client as John Doe. If we scroll on down, you see again, they put John Doe down there. So I think we're pretty good. It even mentions the auto accident case up at the top, and then again, also under the scope of services. So if I go ahead and I say, keep it, we again just have a normal Word document that we can edit. Let me go ahead and open up the original engagement agreement. I want to show you a couple of things. So this is just, you see the formatting is not quite what I had originally, so it took some liberties with that. So I popped back to there. You see it did something different. It's similar, but it's not the same. And then if I pop back to Word, what I do want to show, and I think is indicative of where we're going to be in the not too distant future, especially when we think about document assembly type stuff, is that I didn't do any special coding on this. There are no variables. There's no if then statements. There are no field codes. There's nothing, none of that stuff. If I click in here where it says if hourly, and I'll pop it out, I'll just show you, it's just generic body text style. I typed it in all caps and I highlighted it with the dopey word highlighter. And so then if we scroll down, else if flat fee, again, typed it out. And then down here at the bottom, else if it's contingency. And that's what we got. So, and then if we flip back over, we should also have, so when we flip back over, and we should also have the rest of what we're looking for under contingency, costs and expenses, terminations, things like that. So think about that as a very approachable way to get started with taking and creating templates that are absolutely usable without having to master anybody's special language, even simple ones that come with most of the law practice management software, the web-based stuff. That was strictly Word. I pointed Copilot at it, told it what I wanted to change, and it went ahead and did it. So let's pop out Copilot. This is popping out Copilot in the document that it created. And one of the other things that I think would be super nice that Copilot may be able to do, sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. So we're going to go fly by the seat of our pants here and see what happens. If I go ahead and I ask it, make all instances of John Doe hold. See what it does. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, what I'm hoping it will someday do is that this would be a super easy way to also format the document if you could be able to tell it to do that. Haven't been able to do that yet. I'd show it every time just because that's often something folks ask about, or if I ask it, could it do the formatting for me? It can't yet, but it might someday soon be able to do that. So let's say we wanted to do something similar, but instead, let's open a new document. Instead of doing the engagement agreement, we want to do, say, an engagement letter. So I'm just going to pop open a new document. Do the same thing, just hit the little Copilot bubble. And let me go ahead and I'll grab the prompt so you don't have to watch me type. Going to be fairly similar. We're still going to talk about John Doe here. But again, we want to tell it like a model document to use. And we're going to use engagement letter. Give it a minute to find. Keep, let's tell it to use it as the model. Keep the source formatting. We'll see if that works. And we'll go ahead and hit generate, see what we get. It's going to think a little bit longer. And we'll check and see, but we got the engagement agreement. Let me go ahead, we'll hit keep it, and let's take a look and see if it preserved that formatting. So we are here, we're Tahoma 12. Let's flip back to our other document, see what we are here. We are not. So again, formatting is really kind of beyond the scope at this point for Copilot within Word, but you do get a lot of handy drafting features, and I think particularly that engagement agreement kind of shows you where things will be heading, and I'm pretty excited about that, and I hope you are too. Let's do a couple more things with Word documents, and then we'll jump over to Excel. So another thing I want to show you is, let's say we've got, we want to draft some discovery responses or some interrogatories. Let's do some interrogatories. So let's do Control New, something similar. Again, being able to use starter documents is really one of the handiest things that you get. So we're going to use MS Discovery as a model. And again, MS Discovery, that's my own personal reference. This isn't some special Microsoft document or something. It's just what I call the document. Draft a new document. The claimant is John Smith. The employer is, let's do ABC widget. And the carrier is, oops, let me make sure we can spell that right. Here is State Farm. Go ahead and hit it, and it's going to generate. So it's going to go out and it's going to begin using that model document. It's going to process through, and same thing we kind of saw with John Doe, but we're asking it to do it with 3 parties this time. And it's going to produce our form for the Mississippi Compensation Commission. And we've got John Smith, claimant, ABC Widget employer, State Farm. Now comes ABC Widget and State Farm, employer and carrier herein, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it should have gone through. Now let's take a look down below. Request for, and then you've got the certificate of service. And I think in the original Bugs Bunny was the attorney, so that's where Bugs came from. Again, hopefully this saved you some time. Let's go back now and we'll just ask a couple of questions of one operating agreement. And I'll show you that even in Word, Copilot can do a little bit of math help, I think. So let's go ahead and I'm going to open this physician's document. And similar to what we did with our case references, let me go ahead and pop out Copilot. And let's say, physicians recruitment agreement, let's say, what dollar amounts are mentioned? And again, we've got a 13-page document. We'll see what it finds. So it found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different references, and it cites them. Let's see what we get if I just go over here and I put in a $sign. We get 5 references. I like that they agree. So we've got 1.5 million, and then we've got 10 million. Let's make sure that's the same. 10 million, or I'm sorry, 10,000. Oh, so I could read. And then let's go down. We've got 5,000. Now the next one down here. I must have missed 5,000 in there somewhere. Let's see where 5,000. Let's use that reference to hit and see. Okay, so I missed it. It was under 3.1. So again, that would save you some time. Suppose you didn't want to read, I don't know, maybe you didn't want to read section 4 of the document. You could just ask it, summarize section 4 only of this document. And so section 4 deals with lines of credit, and it's going to process. There we go. So we should have repayment of principal. So it essentially, I think it grabbed the, sub 1, so 4.1, 4.2, et cetera. And then we've got, I bet it did, yeah. Do we have, oh, it did it out of order, but we've got them all. For some reason it put reconciliation. Oh no, it didn't, they're in order. So yeah, but it didn't just do that, you'll notice, because we've got reconciliation is 4.3, but it also talks about exclusion and it talks about reasonable and necessary office expenses, whereas those are, so it didn't just go through and grab 4.1, 4.2, 4.3 and say those are the important things. It actually went through and put in a couple of things that were not mentioned as section headings. So again, nice way to save time. Still at a point where you'd want to probably double check it though before you relied wholly on it. If you got any questions as we're going along, feel free to throw them in the chat. Let me close out of these. We'll do a couple of things in Excel now, just because I think Excel is really the one where I'm also very excited, because if you don't spend a lot of time in Excel, Excel can be pretty intimidating. And I think Copilot does a lot to make that more accessible, because especially if you're not someone who's comfortable writing formulas, then Copilot can really help with that. So I'm going to go ahead. I've just opened an Excel file. And let's go ahead and we're going to hit the Copilot button on, obviously it's in the same place as you would see for Word. Yeah, if you can, I believe, summarize multiple documents at once, but you don't actually get to do that through there's a question in the chat, sorry, that can it summarize multiple documents at once? I think it can through the web interface. So and I'll show you the web interface in just a little bit, but you can't through the app. Like it's basically document by document in the app. So let's go ahead and pop open Copilot. And you'll notice we didn't have this question with Word, but we do have this question with Excel. And it says, if you want me to do things with Copilot, you've got to save it into some place that the autosave turns on. Autosave, which you see up here at the top left, works if you're storing your document in Microsoft's OneDrive or in SharePoint. So your only option if you want to use Excel is to store the document in one of those two locations if you want to use Copilot with it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll throw it in our company OneDrive, give it a minute to do that. You'll see autosave popped on, and now we have some options here on the right-hand side, including, interestingly enough, we can do formatting in Excel. We can't do formatting in Word, but we can do formatting in Excel. But let's say instead, since we're in Excel, let's say we want to know what were the average sales for the year. Let's see what it does with that. You'll notice we've 2015, we've got 12 months of sales. Let's see what it does with that. I'm not writing any sort of formula. I'm just asking a normal question, like what are the average sales for the year? And it's thinking about it. It does take a little bit longer sometimes with Excel. And so it gave us the average, it gave us actually the formula for it. And then it gave us down there 28,263. If you're familiar with Excel, we can double check our work pretty quickly. I'm just going to click in that bottom line there. And then we're going to do a total row. And I don't want the total for this column. I want the average. And we get hopefully what matches, right? 26,263. So if I didn't know how to add a table or add a total row to a table, I'd be fumbling around. If I didn't know how to do an average, I'd be kind of fumbling around for a while. Instead, I just asked Copilot in plain English, what's the average? Maybe I don't want to have to think too hard. Let's ask it, what month did we pay the most in sales tax? And so it's thinking about it, and it says that we paid the most in August. Let's just eyeball it a bit, but yeah, looks like we might even have max. Yeah, so if we do max, you'll see the max is 22/12/25, which is also August. So very easy, I think, to approach data. One of the things you might notice is that data is in a table. So if you're not comfortable with tables in Excel, it's a little hit or miss as to whether either Copilot can work with the data, even though it's not in a table, or a lot of the times it will ask you, or actually it will offer in many cases, to put that data into a table. Doing a table in Excel is super easy. You just highlight the group of data and just do Control T. So it's super easy to create a table, but oftentimes Excel will offer to do it as well. Let's say we went to the second spreadsheet and we've got an estate for John Doe. Let's go ahead and we've got some properties tangible, some properties intangible, some property is real estate. Let's say, and I'm not telling Copilot that we changed tabs or anything, but let's say we just want to know what is the total value of the tangible property. And again, it's going to think for a bit. And we get, so looking at the cell range, so B7, which is going to be, would be up here at the top right or top left, and it's going to go down to the bottom right. And it gave us a formula to produce it. But it did not in this case, $2,000. Yeah, so it's a little bit harder to read. I can tell you that it's pretty straightforward to figure out if you just look at the table. $500 here, $1,500 here, $2,000. But again, if you didn't know how to tell Excel to figure out whether the property was tangible or intangible, you didn't know how to do, I don't know, maybe a sum if or whatever you might want to use for that. This is definitely a more approachable way to get those same kinds of answers. Question in the chat about using Copilot with Nitro Pro. The PDF program, Copilot would be confined to Microsoft products. It wouldn't surprise me if Nitro has their own sort of AI product. It's a little out of the. It's not directly on topic, but I'll pop it up here since question. Let's take a look at it. I'm popping up the slides that we put together in a PDF in Adobe. So this is Adobe, and they have their own AI assistant. So this is completely unrelated to Copilot, but it is available within Adobe, and it has a lot of the same features as far as it'll examine the document, it'll read it, so to speak, and you can ask it questions. As you can see, it's a little bit slower, and of course I put a bunch of images in it, so it might be trying to figure out what those are. But that's confined to Adobe. So you're paying for Adobe. Nitro may have their own thing. I'd be surprised if they weren't jumping on the bandwagon there, but it would be limited to whatever you open or whatever Nitro through their deals or whatever connects to. But that wouldn't be, at least as of right now, that wouldn't be Copilot, I don't believe. And then question also in the chat, you use Copilot with Word or Excel docs, do you need to anonymize the data? If, and I appreciate you letting us know that you came in a little late, because if you are paying Microsoft through $30 a month for the Copilot access within your Office 365 environment, so you're not or Microsoft 365 environment, if you're a Microsoft 365 subscriber, and you're storing your data there and you're using Copilot within the confines of that, no, I would feel comfortable doing client work with Copilot through the paid version. From this year. Okay, very good. So with respect to would you need to anonymize the data? I would say no. If, however, you are using the free version of Copilot, or you're using basically I would say a free version of any of these AI products, or even some of the paid ones, but certainly the free version, let's keep it to Copilot, I would anonymize the data. But if you're paying for Microsoft 365 and paying for Copilot within that, the way they sort of structure it is that, keep it simple, they put a copy of the language model within your environment, and that data your data doesn't leave there. And then Dan did some research for us to answer our question on NetDocs. There is apparently a Copilot extension for NetDocs. So if you are a NetDocs subscriber, you can plug in Copilot and NetDocs to that. So that would be very, very good, and that way you can again get that sort of flavoring that or the right sort of tone and stuff that represents your firm and your voice when you ask it to draft or help you create documents. Couple other things worth showing. Let me pop open. I'm going to do this just in on the Mac side, but again, the experience between Windows and the Mac is pretty similar. I'm just doing it on the Mac side because frankly, I think it'll be a little bit faster. So let me go in. I'll pop open my my sample inbox so you don't see all the random emails that I get. You get some Copilot tools within Outlook as well. I am using the new Outlook. I know a lot of folks, particularly in bigger firms, are still using the classic Outlook. If you're on Windows, if you're on Mac, this is your Outlook. They will, if they haven't already, they are going to put Copilot features into classic Outlook. Copilot features are already in the new Outlook. So if you're brave enough to use the new Outlook, you already have the Copilot features. So let's say I've got this email from Michelle, and right there at the top, I get a big button here. We're advertising for Copilot, so I can hit this, and it'll summarize the email. And so if folks who sometimes write long-winded emails, this might be really, really nice. It will do the same thing with conversations. So if you went out for, a couple days and there are 7 emails topic, just, assuming you're using that conversation view, you click on that group of emails and it will summarize the conversation. So what did this say out of, Michelle wrote, I'm going to say 12 sentences. I didn't really count them, but that took it down to essentially 4. Thanked everyone for joining a town hall. Mentioned what we're going to do with respect to teamwork and someone internally who's coordinating that. And then she talks about a shared experience when they were working with a vendor. The vendor was in Israel. As you can see, the email was in January. So during their discussion, the vendor had to, I assume, go to their under bomb shelters or air raid shelters or whatever, and for a while before they could come back. The interesting thing about this summary is that I'm one of a few people in the company who have Copilot and who demo this for a while, and we've got someone else who does it, and she had read Michelle's email, and then went back and used the Copilot summary feature on the email, and it wasn't until she hit the summary that she even knew that that point about the air raid sirens was even in there. So sometimes when you might miss something really interesting in a longer email simply because maybe your mind wanders a bit, or it's about tech stack and everything. It's not tech stack. We sort of scrap away in our mind. And then it was the Copilot summary that actually popped out that this kind of interesting fact was there. So that's also kind of useful. If you do new emails in the same way that we can use Word to draft documents, we can also, of course, use Copilot. If I'm not going to demo it during this session, but if you're a Mac user, you also get Apple Intelligence can do some of this stuff too. So let's say we wanted to go ahead and we'll pop up that, and let's say draft an email saying that the tax documents are due by January 15. Go ahead and we'll hit the generate. And so it did a couple things there. Wrote, hello, everyone. I didn't tell them who I was writing to, so put everyone. Hope this message finds you well. It already sounds kind of wordy as far as I'm concerned. And it went ahead and it put in my signature down there. So let's say maybe we want to make this shorter. Oops, sometimes I hit return and just hit the arrow. So let's have it, and it made it much shorter. It's I hope you're well. Here's a reminder, tax documents are due by January 15th. Please submit the necessary information. It can change voice too. So let's say make it more casual. And I go ahead and we'll hit the button. And I put in some exclamation points. Just a quick reminder, a little more casual. Make sure you get all the necessary info. We did use the word info in before the deadline. If you need any help, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for taking care of this promptly. I think maybe thanks for taking care of this promptly is a little more formal. But in any event, it did do that. When I was demoing this for some folks at a firm in New Jersey, you can do like kind of silly things like make it sound like a cowboy. I'll go ahead and hit the button. And it says, howdy y'all, hope you're riding high, et cetera, et cetera. So a few things that you can do with that. And of course you got, if you aren't one who wants to type, they do have some of these quick modifications down here. Retry would essentially be what Word said was regenerate. Down there with make it shorter, make it longer, and then you've got some options for changing tone. Make it a poem. Let's see what that is. So, especially if you're someone like me who sometimes struggles with, having that blank sheet of paper there, this is a good way to get something that's kind of a first draft and not something like that I would send out except to a few people inside the company, but maybe a little bit get you thinking, get the mind working so that what you get down to what you actually want to do. Let's take a look at a couple of things in Teams, and then we'll close out with something specific that a couple of things you can do online. So let's say, let me pop Teams over here, and I've got some stuff. Maybe I'm in Zach's chat. I chat back and forth with Zach all the time. I've got a Copilot button up here at the top right. And I could say, what do I need to do for Zach for the AI web page? See what it finds in there. I need to update the Clio draft page and change the slug from Lawya to Clio draft and duplicate the page. So it tells me, gives me a little bit of idea what we were talking about, makes it nice and easy to summarize. If you want to use, and this works in both Teams on Windows and on the Mac, if you go back up to like the activity or to the chat area, you do have this whole Copilot feature up at the top, and it's plugged into everything that you're storing in within the Microsoft Graph system. So you could ask, like maybe you want to call somebody, not familiar with Teams, and you want to know what is Danielle's phone number. Oops, hope so I could spell. And it'll go out. And in this case, we only have one Danielle in the firm, so hopefully it'll find something. And there's her phone number. You could ask other questions if you've got your HR policies or your employee benefits type stuff set up within that Microsoft ecosystem. It should have access to that. If, as most of you probably are, you're a Windows user, and if you're on Windows 11, let's go ahead and I'll pop back into Windows here. You've got a little button on the taskbar there that takes you right into Copilot. And again, if you're not paying for it, this would give you access to the free one, so you could experiment. I wouldn't put client confidential stuff in the free one, but it's definitely there for you to play with. So let's say, for example, oh, I know, this Friday the 13th, as we're recording, in Cincinnati, our UVA chapter is doing their Christmas or their holiday, and actually they're calling it their Hula Day party. So let's say I wanted to show up with some sort of picture or whatever. So I'm going to ask Copilot here to create an image of a holiday warrior. We'll see what it does with that. And I've been using this for some. You didn't see any of the presentation today, but I've been using this for some like clip art stuff that I would put into a presentation. And so rather than like scouring the web and worrying about copyright type stuff, I just say, hey, give me a picture. It's working on it. This is of the things I've done with Copilot, this is the one that seems to have taken the longest. That must be a European interpretation of holiday because he's on the beach. And then we've got few folks, a sweater, and it looks kind of dull. Christmas party doesn't look too bad. Let's say, let's see if it'll just change the people. Make all of the people casually dressed and 2 of them women. See what it does with that. So depending on what you might need for marketing purposes or website or whatever, you can do some experimentation here. Again, some of this, like this kind of stuff, you could even do with the free one. I was just wanted to show it off. I felt like it was a reasonably interesting thing to end on. But this is, again, available on the web, or if you're on Windows 11, you've got, oh, they added a bunch of women. You'll find this when it generates these images, like none of these 4 have anything whatsoever to do with these 4. So I could not, and even in the other AIs, like I couldn't say, replace the fella in the top left with, I don't know, a woman or something like that. It won't replace individuals. It basically regenerates the image. So we've got, I'm not sure it did great with the casual attorneys though. We still have 3 ties here. Anyway, lots of things that you can do with that. This is actually, and then just to show you that it all kind of ties back together. Let me bop back over to the other. It'll show up there eventually. I was going to show it to you that it showed up in Teams, but it hasn't shown up there. It takes a little bit of time to get over. So this kind of stuff you could do through the app for free. I would be fine throwing in like blog article ideas and stuff like that, ask it for those sorts of things. for any of the things that we showed off today that kind of work with client documents, that sort of thing, that's where you want to pay for it. And that's where you want to be within the sphere of the Microsoft ecosystem, where they take that AI and it's, the model is living within your setup. Question in the chat on, can Copilot in Outlook work with add-ins like File in Clio? Not yet. So right now, add-ins and Copilot are kind of siloed. So you couldn't, like, if you've got some sort of program that does numbering for you in Word, you couldn't say have Copilot control that. It's just Copilot's, with the exception apparently of what we've got with NetDocs, until someone writes an extension, Copilot's kind of siloed. So it might be a possibility that Clio could write that, but it doesn't exist as of right now. So we're right at time. That's great. So I'll turn it back over to Paul now.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. I appreciate all this great information. I'm glad you can get AI to talk like a cowboy instead of talk like a pirate. So thank you all for coming today. And thanks to Jeff and the team at Lawyerist for a great program. Look for more quarterly programming from the VBA Practice Management Advisor Program in 2025. Jeff and I were talking before we came on, and there's some great new programs that I look forward to looking through, and we'll see you again next year. Have a wonderful holiday season. Happy New Year, and have a good one.